Okay, all right.
Meeting in progress, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. Let's call the meeting of the City Council dated Wednesday, July the 21st. We will rise for an invocation led by Mayor Pro Tem Harris, followed by pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Julie Martin. Let's please rise to all of them.
Most heavenly and gracious God, we come to you in the humblest manner which we know how. We come asking God now that you will touch this meeting, touch the minds that we might come on forward. We pray now, Father God, that you would just touch each and every person under the sound of my voice, touch each and every citizen of the city of Brunswick as well as the county of Brunswick. We ask now, God, that you would impart your wisdom in us, that we may be about your business, and that we may be about the concerns of the citizens of the city of Brunswick. We pray now for all to come together. In Jesus' name we say, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening again, everyone. Thank you all for coming out, and the ones who are with us virtually as well. This evening, before we get started, I believe there are a couple of items we need to add to our agenda.
Yes, I would like to add as item number 5A under item city attorney's items to consider approval for the resolution of the approval of resolution number 2021-11, moratorium on the acceptance and approval of permits for off-premises or billboard signs.
Okay, then motion is second to add item 5A to our agenda. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposers have the same right. That motion carried. Thank you.
I'd also like to add as item number 4A and 4B under items to consider for approval. As 4A, consider approval of contract amendments with Lone Wolf Resources for the T Street landfill construction activities. And item 4B, consider approval of subrecipient agreement amendment to increase community development block grant disaster relief award for the homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction program.
Second.
Motion is second for to add those two items, item 4A and 4B to our agenda. Further comments or questions?
Mayor,
Yes.
item 5 is under items to be considered for.
Oh, it is?
This is city.
Previous items, that's why she said that 5A.
Okay, we're on the wrong agenda.
No, someone at two. I think the city attorney's items I have is 6 would have been.
It's number wrong, the number, it's number wrong, I noticed that, it's 2 started, but it's.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
No problem. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposers, please say the same. Hearing none, I believe the ayes have it, so we will add item 4A and 4B along with item 5A to our agenda. Is that all we need to add to our agenda? I believe so. Comments? Okay, as we move right along, I'd like to let everybody know that Commissioner Williams is with us virtually. So we do have a full board in attendance tonight, this evening. Our first item on our agenda is a public hearing, alcohol beverage license, new license. Consider approval of new beverage license for Lucky 7. Patel is the owner, 3021 Uptown Avenue for retail sale of beer and wine. Ms. Mundy is presented.
Good evening, Commission. As presented on June the 16th, we're requesting approval for a retail sale of beer and wine for Lucky 7 for Anchor Patel. He is here with us tonight if you have any questions.
Any questions for Deputy Marshal Monday?
Everything has been, just as previously stated, nothing negative was identified on the criminal history, and that would prevent him from possessing a license.
What question, has this, is this a new license, a new owner, that's why? It's new
It's just new ownership.
license? Was there anything in the past for Lucky 7?
No,
Is that also a convenience store?
yes.
That's what it looks like, okay.
No question, thank you, Ms. Monday. The owner?
He is here. Would you like for him to step to the
Yes. Got anything you said?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Patel. This is a requirement for all new license for us to see the owner.
Right.
During our public hearing. So is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it. Any questions for Mr. Patel, anybody? No? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners and audience, as this is a public hearing, we will open this up for our public hearing segment in which we will entertain anyone who would like to come forth and speak for or against the granting of this new license, this new alcohol beverage license. And when you come forward, please state your name and please state your address, and you will be given 3 minutes to respond or address this commission. So now the floor is open now for anyone who would like to speak for or against the granting of this petition. Alcohol license. Commissioner, it seems that no one is coming forth to speak for or either against the granting of this new beverage license. And as it has been located in this location before, it's been a beverage store before, but now has new ownership. Therefore, it necessitates us going through this process. So I will close out the public hearing portion of it. The commissioners, I wait your will and pleasure.
I make a motion to approve the beverage and alcohol license Lucky 7 at 3021 Alabama.
Second.
It's been motion and second for the approval of the new alcohol beverage license for Lucky 7 at 3021 Alabama Avenue. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose have the same right. Hearing nothing from the opposing side, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carried. Thank you, Deputy Marshal Monday.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Also moving right along, our next item on our agenda is public hearing land use, rezoning petition number 2101 from Peter Schaffner.
So now.
So now, representing the owner, is petition to rezone St. Francis Xavier multiple lots on Howell Street and Grant Street from general residential for GR for commercial core GC core. Mr. John Hunter, our planning and director. Excuse me, John.
That's all right.
Our planning director, it's presented.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. The subject parcels comprise about 0.7 acres. Based on our records, the properties appear to have been rezoned from general residential to GR core in 1983. The parcels are highlighted in yellow on your map. The Parcels to the north across Howe Street are zone GC core. Parcels to the west across Bay Street are zoned general commercial. And properties to the south are zoned general residential, as are properties across Grant Street to the east. You can see this on the zoning map. The applicant has requested rezoning the parcels to GC core. This would facilitate the renovation of the property for use as a new school building. It's the intent of the GC core zoning district to be developed and reserved for downtown business purposes. Those list of approved uses roll back to our general commercial and our general residential uses. And a school is an allowed use within general residential, which then makes it an allowed use within GC core. As you know, when we are considering rezonings, we reference back to our comprehensive plan and our guidance about our character areas. This is in the Old Town character area, and appropriate land uses within the Old Town character area include single-family residential, multifamily development, community scale, commercial, institutional, and mixed-use development along Gloucester and Newcastle Street downtown, multi-story mixed development or condominiums, hotels and resorts and hospitality, tourism and cultural facilities, green space, public marinas, and associated uses. Rezoning the parcels to GC core will allow the development of the school with a new school building which has greater capacity to provide services while limiting its impact on the adjacent residential property. While the use is listed as appropriate for the character area, it's compatible with the previous zoning designation of general residential and is adjacent to similarly zoned property. Staff recommended approval of the rezoning to the GC core. This went to the Planning and Appeals Commission for its first public hearing on May 12th, 2021. Representatives of St. Francis and their project team were available for questions. They also had a couple of public speakers who were concerned about traffic impacts. The request was deferred until the June 9th meeting. And the PAC asked that more information be provided about traffic, including traffic impacts around Hanover Square. The school had provided a traffic study as part of its initial application, but the PAC asked that they extend the study hours to 5 p.m. and examining the queuing of cars on the Bay Street for drop off on Howe Street. Excuse me. This came back before the PAC at the June 9th meeting. The expanded traffic analysis found that the impact on Hanover Square would be minimal, and that extending the study time to 5 p.m. showed that after-school program impact was minimal, as well as parents arrive intermittently with no queuing, and also provided feedback from GDOT that they would not allow the stacking of cars on Bay Street. The PAC unanimously recommended the rezoning request, limiting the allowed uses to the following uses from the general commercial section. Any use permitted in the GR residential district, retail, wholesale, and storage business involving the sale of merchandise on the premise, except those uses which involve open yard storage, junk, salvage, used auto parts or building materials, business involving the rendering of a personal service other than an automobile laundry or automobile repair garage, a church, and an office building for government business or professional use. The idea from the Planning and Appeals Commission behind this is they were looking at potential things that the church and school might have going on there activity-wise, and they didn't want to restrict them if they had a retail event going on there as part of their school, or dining is going on, or some sort of a special event that would be typical as part of their services that they already provide at the school, and just making sure that we weren't disallowing them from doing anything that they can currently do as part of the school activities. And again, those recommendations were unanimous from the PAC. To give you an idea, was a very lengthy report because of the traffic study. But I did want to at least show you some of the, if my iPad will load here, you'll see that they do have a fairly well thought out site plan. It will cover most of those lots. One of the things that we've considered as part of that is there are some buffer requirements between the residential next door. Those have been at least conceptually included in their site plan. You'll also notice that there's provisions for parking that would take place in what's currently a vacant lot between this location and the Catholic Church. This also has already gone before the Historic Preservation Board for their renderings. The Preservation Board made some comments and had some feedback and a couple of changes, but actually approved those at their meeting earlier this month. Representatives from the school here this evening will be able to answer any questions that I haven't been able to cover. And at this time, if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, can you get back to the map that had, the color map that had all the, see what page that was on?
The existing zoning map.
Page 2.
Yep.
Just want to question, I see we want to change this from GC.
It is,
to GC.
yeah, it is currently listed as GR core, general residential core. And that these are actually the only parcels in the city that are zoned that way. GR core is specifically developed as part of the Bay Street urban renewal projects back in the 60s and 70s, with the idea of those parcels becoming a dense townhouse development.
So all these parcels in gold here are GC4, right?
No, sir. Only the ones that, I'll go back a map so you can see here.
Okay, let's see, only.
The ones outlined in yellow are the ones owned by St. Francis. It's going to take a second.
Okay.
If you go to the map on page 1.
So my question is, we're gonna make those, I guess, red, I guess, right? They're trying to be some red, yeah?
It'll be, it'll be red. It'll be GC core like those across the street.
And that would be the only parcels in red across House Street.
Yes, sir.
So if that ever changes use, let's just say down the road at some point, it's no longer going to be a school. The church, the diocese decides to sell it off for whatever reason. We're probably not going to still be around, but what would happen? Would that have to, would it revert back? Would it still remain?
So there's two things there. One, by recommending the restrictive rezoning and limiting those uses, anything that came in to replace that would only be able to follow those uses. It would also go through as kind of the catch side of that. It would be going through a new CO process as you had a transition to a new business, a new owner. So that's our backstop to being able to catch that and say, your uses have to be consistent with what was there, or you're going to have to go through a rezoning process and start the public process all over again.
And this is a two-story structure.
Two-story structure.
A full two-story structure.
Yes, ma'am.
With the exception of the area that is the basketball, the outside.
Right, there's an outside play area that obviously is
Well,
only.
there's two, I guess, really.
There's a courtyard.
The courtyard, and then the playground, mulched, rubber.
Yeah, got a question about the boundary of the, are we gonna leave it open with only, vegetation, or it's gonna be?
So there will be a fence on that side in addition to vegetation.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. This is Commissioner Williams. Are there gonna be, like, during the school hours, I know St. Francis has some street closures in the city now, will there be street closures as far as the school's concerned in that area?
I think that's something the school will need to come back and request. I would assume during the school hours that they would like to see that section of Grant Street closed for safety. But obviously that's a request that has to come back before y'all at another time. That's not under the purview of the Planning and Appeals Commission.
Is the height of the building going to exceed the height of
Of the
the,
house next door.
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
okay.
Same height as our downtown area.
Roughly, yes. So you've got some continuity there from the buildings north of Howe Street. And then you've got the two-story houses that are actually about 3 feet off the ground by the way their foundations are. So and they've got a fairly high-pitched, high roof line.
What is the exterior going to look like?
Brick, and brick and stucco. And if you give me 1 second, let me see if I've got my rendering in this packet.
I don't remember seeing it, but.
I'm trying to see, do you have the oak trees in that area?
The central courtyard actually preserves a very large oak tree. And I apologize, I did not download the renderings for the school. We've actually got one of the architects on the call from Savannah, Ryan Klaus. Ryan may be able to, if he's got the renderings, he may be able to share his screen and show those. Ryan, are you able to do that?
Hey, John. Yes, I am. I can
Sure.
share my screen if, I think you might have to unshare your screen.
Do that real quick.
Okay. Here you go. So this is the elevation from Grant Street, from the, let's see, southeast corner of the lot. That would be the approach from Newcastle and Howe, and then turning on to Grant at the school drop-off. This is Howe Street to Bay Street on this corner. And this is a perspective from Howe and Bay Street. You can see we have brick, a combination of brick and stucco with some cast stone elements.
So there'll be parking along the frontage on Grant, but no all-day parking along Hanover Square.
No.
And most of the traffic as far as drop-off pickup is going to be oriented Howe, Grant.
Howe, Grant. Howe, Grant, George.
Okay.
So you will obviously have 3 or 4 houses there along George that are part of the traffic pattern 2 times a day. Similarly to the way the school is set up now, where you've got houses on George Street and Union Street that are impacted, and on Hanover Square that are impacted by the queuing. This has the potential, I think, by queuing up Howe Street behind some of the commercial to actually have less impact on residential.
And were we told anywhere in there whether or not the school population, the enrollment? I know there was something mentioned about 300 students once the expansion's done.
It will have the capacity to handle 300 students. I believe right now the student population is at 175. And the traffic analysis takes that 300 number and analyze that for its impacts.
Yeah, because they do, I mean, living on Hanover Square, they do queue up and traffic backs up now. So
Yep.
that's a pretty big increase. Population.
It is, one of those things to keep in mind though is you are dealing with families. So typically you've got within that 175 students, you may only have half that number of cars right now, due to the carpooling and.
Where is the faculty gonna park at?
Faculty park in the middle parking lot, that's in between the church, the school and the church. So that's a grass lot that's in between these two sections.
Okay. You gonna keep it grass or you gonna pave or just gonna stay grass?
I think that's open either way, so that's the, so right now it's grass, if we open and pave it either way.
I would encourage whatever pervious surfaces we can, because that's literally 1 block away from a heavily flooded area on Newcastle Street, right there at Mansfield. And we're adding a lot of impervious surface with the school and the parking. So to the degree, and I don't know, Garrow, how that's going to affect all the stormwater, but that's huge. That's a huge issue right there.
Yeah, I've had conversations with Mr. Schonauer about his site design and this addition, so he'll have to apply some sort of probably stormwater, whether it be a pond or retain that stormwater somehow because of the addition of the impervious surface there and the additional runoff volumes. The conversations we've had so far are strictly about the school site itself. We've not talked about this parking site yet, so I don't know what his plans are for surfacing of that, but there's definitely going to have to be some attenuation of that runoff because of that Howe Street pipe and the issues there.
Yeah, I don't see a pond written in on the site anywhere, so.
And I would think if you're looking at this, we should be looking now at the totality of it, not waiting until it's built and then we go back and address it. That's we already, yes, we need to look at the totality of this to see how this is going to play out totally, not piece by piece, but the total picture of it.
Mm-hmm. I have another question. This is Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, we just have flooding.
What about the fencing and things of that nature around the school for us? How far have they considered that as a safety measure for the facility?
Yeah, they have considered that. I believe the architect's scrolling to maybe one of his renderings to potentially show it. There would be fencing on the south side between the property. There we go. Most of the activities will be contained within the school building themselves.
So this is just rezoning.
Yes, ma'am.
So
they have not submitted any permitting issues yet. So as we go through the building permit review process, obviously our whole team will look at it. Garrow will be studying it very heavily.
So they've got several more steps.
There's still several more steps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to know that they know that we are concerned about flooding and stormwater runoff and other things too, and how it address aesthetically where it sits for our community. So it's good to know that they know that we are concerned about those things too as well.
Yep.
So, but anyhow, Commissioner, any further comments or questions for Mr. Hunter? As you said, John, superintendent's here, I imagine?
We have Dr. Merriman and Father Tim.
Would you like to say something? You can, sir.
Mayor and Commissioners, just like to thank you for listening to us tonight. And the school will be starting its 123rd year this year, and our church has been here 153 years. So we felt we've been good neighbors throughout this time. We continue to try to be good neighbors. We want to work with y'all. Traffic, flooding, anything we can do, we definitely have the people to do that. So we'll continue to try and work with that. And thank you for listening to us tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Likewise, I said, thank you. My name is Dr. Terry Merman, and this is my 10th year starting at St. Francis Xavier. So it has been a joy, and we're looking forward to our new building and another 150 to 200 years as we continue the legacy of St. Francis Xavier.
We thank you too, sir. We thank you guys for coming. Also, know that we are very pleased that you are in our downtown area where you are, and also the history that you bring to our city. So thank you.
Thank you.
What is the number of the faculty?
There are 30 faculty members. They're not all full-time, but part of them are the afternoon or the EDP, the extended day program, and the morning program, but about 30 people on the staff total.
Currently, you don't have any problems with parking.
No, in fact, with the new building and the faculty parking in that grassy parking lot, it will take a lot of the teachers' cars off those streets, because right now they park on Union Street as well as Howe, and then some behind in the alley behind the old convent there. So I think we'll have a lot better parking with the new school.
What is going to be the use of
Yeah, we're thinking about, like kind of a parish life center where organizations would have their meetings in there. And so we don't have any strictly, plans for anything other than that, but to continue to use the building for the parish. Thank you. Just one other point, the city very graciously helped us with our security by locking down Reynolds Street Monday through Friday, but once we move over, I'd imagine we can remove those gates on Reynolds Street, so just 7 days a week, that should open up the access on Reynolds Street going forward, so. We thank you for that. Definitely helps us with security to have that locked down. Similar to Glen Academy, we're kind of just an open campus, so very accessible from many different ways, so that's been a great help to us. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, commissioners? This is a very extensive zoning, basically because of the traffic study that was done. And Sean, did you mention what the traffic study revealed?
Just summary.
Yeah, the summary is that it would have minimal to no impact on the level of service of the streets around the school. So it didn't risk increasing the amount of traffic in any way that would need any additional stop signs, any ingress egress points, turn lanes, anything like that. And it was, I think the overall was less than, challenging me off the top of my head, but it was, the impact was less than 200 total vehicles a day. So it was fairly.
You anticipated being a little more once the school.
It has potential, when the school packs out completely, it may be a little bit more than that, but the streets there have the capacity to be able to handle it without there being traffic issues. Yeah, that was from their traffic measuring point further up Newcastle Street. So that, when GDOT gives you a location, they provide the speed limit information. It's not contiguous to the site. So it did look kind of funny, and the planning commission had the same comment.
So I'm curious about one thing, and I don't know if y'all can answer this question or not, but of the student population, and I understand there's a bus of some size that comes from St. Simon's to bring students over. What percentage of your student body comes from St. Simon's or Jekyll versus Brunswick?
I'd say about 25% comes from St. Simon's, the rest of them from the Glen County.
Okay, thank you.
Also, John, this traffic analysis study was requested by the
PAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we got the initial application in, similarly to the rezoning that we did for the apartments on Gloucester, our belief was that it might trigger the need for a traffic study based on the amount of vehicles. So we requested it from them and they complied and then went back again and got more information. So they were very cooperative with that.
All right, thank you. Okay, Commissioner, thank you, John Hunter, our planning and codes director.
No, yeah.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, again, we will open this up to anyone to speak for or against the grant of this petition, rezoning petition. You can come forward, speak for or against, and you will have 3 minutes, and before you speak, please state your name and your address. And I will give individuals in the chat room exactly the same, and I apologize to the clerk that I didn't ask you that before on others. Okay, now the public hearing is open for anyone to speak for or against the granting of this rezoning petition number 21-01. Thank you, Madam Clerk. It seems no one's coming forward to speak here either. So I will close out our public hearing session. And commissioners, I'll ask what's our will and pleasure to do with this rezoning petition number 21-01.
I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning petition number 21-01 for rezoning of St. Francis Xavier multiple lots at House Street and Grant Street from general residential core, GR core, to general commercial core, GC core.
There's been a motion, there's been second for the granting of rezoning petition number 2101 from general residential core to general commercial core. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing no comments or questions, all who in favor of granting the petition, please say aye.
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 Opposes? Hearing nothing from the opposing, it seems that the ayes have it, and motion carries. Therefore, John, Ms. Hunter, please let individuals know about the petition has been approved. All right, thank you so very much, everybody. Now we are at item number 3, agency and
4.
3. Agency and commission appointment. Okay. Item number 3, 1 or 3I, Urban Redevelopment Agency, 1 appointment. This is the mayor's appointment, and there have been. This is for the expired term of Mr. Patel, Harash Patel. The name that's been submitted is Ms. Kelly Nat. She lives at 601 Tailfield Lane in St. Simons Island, but she had a petition. She is moving to Brunswick. Purchased a number of properties in Brunswick, and so we moved to Brunswick as soon as the property become available for her to move in. I think they're renovating the house. I've talked with, I've notified Mr. Al Verheyen, who's the chairman, and he has reached out to Ms. Nat as well. And commissioners, you see her resume there in our packet, and her desire to be on this board and desire to serve for the URA board. I had an interview with Ms. Nat, as I do all individuals who want to be appointed to any board in the city. And I find very favorable her request to serve on the board. So, without further ado, I am nominating and selecting Ms. Kelly Knapp to fill the expired term of Mr. Arash Patel. Thank you. Matt is not here, she was out of check, told me that. But I will make sure that she comes before the next commission meeting, so we all can be introduced to her. Madam Clerk, will you make sure that she can get notified? Thank you. Okay, now, item number 3A or 3B, Planning and Appeals Commission, one appointment. I haven't reached my. We have one name for an alternate member, Ms. Anita Collins, that's requested to be reappointed in that position. She lives at 1602 Tillman Avenue. Commissioner, what's our will and pleasure with that? Seems to be the only one that's.
Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we reappoint Ms. Anita Collins to the Planning and Appeals Commission.
Second.
Motion second for the appoint Ms. Anita Collins to the Planning and Appeals Commission as an alternate member. Any further questions or comments? Also, I have met with Ms. Collins as well, talked with her, and her desire to continue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any? It appears the ayes have it. The motion carries. Madam Clerk, please let Ms. Collins know what's going on. She's been reappointed. Okay, item number 4. Item to be considered for approval. Consider approval of July 7th, 2021 regular scheduled meeting minutes. It's been in our packet, and take a second or two to peruse. And if no changes, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have one notation. I was bumped off the meeting due to a power outage after item number 7, after that vote was taken. And I noticed that all the other votes were 5-0, but that would not be the case because I was not present.
Okay, we'll please make that correction, Madam Clerk.
Item 7 was the last item I voted on, and then I got bumped out because of power outage.
I was taking minutes at that point. I think that was my fault.
I think Madam Clerk, she also got knocked off the meeting, so I apologize. I think I was the one
I might have made that mistake, so sorry about that.
I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, so.
Okay, it's been motion second with the noted changes by Commissioner Martin on our minutes. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed have the same right. Hearing nothing on the opposing side, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, item number 4A. This contract
Amendments.
Yes, for Longwood.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I apologize for the late addition to the agenda with this. This is a contract amendment for our construction contract with Lone Wolf Resources for the construction of the closure of the T Street landfill. Y'all all know the history of the T Street landfill. Finally, earlier this year, we were able to get construction underway of the closure cap and closure of that landfill. Here, we're getting very close to the end of that process. As with any job of this magnitude, we've come across a few things along the way that were not necessarily covered in our original estimate, or that we've had to make some changes. So this change order, this amendment covers a couple of those items. And like I said, I'm sorry y'all haven't had a chance to look over it very much yet, but I'll go through the items real quick with you. There's basically 5 items listed in this change order. Number 1 is the addition of some additional fill material. The original estimate called for, I think, approximately 75,000 cubic yards of fill material, which was imported from Andrews Island. We ended up using needing about an additional 10,000 yards there due to just settlement, shifting, and compaction of the existing landfill material. Caused us to need an extra more material than we originally thought. The second 2 items have to do with what they call boiler reuse material, which is a byproduct of the mill process next door, and their boiler process is material that is dredged out of their settlement ponds, allowed to dry, and then we've been able to use that as fill material and as cover material, topsoil cover material at the landfill. We've gotten approval from EPD to use it for the cover material. Item number 2 in here covers about almost 2,000 yards of that material was used as fill material along with the Andrews Island material. And then number 3 is the topsoil material. And we're going to use the BRM material completely as topsoil instead of topsoil. It shows up here in this change order as a cost of about $111,000, almost $112,000, but that will replace the topsoil line item in the contract, which was $337,000. So there's a significant savings for using this boiler reuse material here.
And none of that has contaminants in it. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
It's been tested, for all sorts of different elements and items. And then, like I said, EPD has signed off on it as well. Item number 4 is hydro seeding, and what that is stabilization of our banks and disturbed areas. On this landfill, obviously, you'll have slopes as the landfill slopes down to the river and the marsh area. The original plan called for those sloped areas to be protected with stone riprap. We've gone back and gotten approval from EPD to come in with hydro seeding, and basically that is spraying a grass seed material there, which will grow quickly and stabilize those slopes and protect those slopes. Again, this one shows up in the change order as a cost of $91,500 for the hydro seeding, but it will be replacing a cost of $551,000 for the original riprap material. And then the last item in the amendment is some touch-up work at the Andrews Island site. The contractor finished the excavation there and hauling out the material. After that, GDOT came back in, and GDOT more or less has control of that Andrews Island site. And there were some touch-up things that they wanted done, some grading of the excavation areas to keep the water flowing. 1, so that it doesn't pond for mosquitoes, but 2, when they start a dredging process, then that water and sand as they dredge will flow properly through that site.
So we get sand from Andrews Island, and then they are going to charge us for going and taking some of the sand, basically. some of the soil. That's basically what it seemed like it's saying.
This is not necessarily a charge for the material. This is a charge for the contractor to come back and regrade and touch up those areas that they used so that is suitable for GDOT and the Corps of Engineers.
However, Glenn County uses that. A lot of people around here use our soil all the time. I just want to know, do they charge them? You please just find that out for me, because I don't want to be the only one to get in charge for using that dredge material.
Right. I will find out the answer. I think if they left it in a way that is not suitable for GDOT, then they would have to pay as well. So, but
we're taking it like everybody else taking it. I don't know if they have to put it back in the same spot and make it whole like we have to.
Right.
That's all I'm asking. I don't want to be treated any different.
I will confirm that applies to everybody.
Okay. All right.
Have you ever approved any payment for any soil from off the land?
Have I approved payments for any soil?
I don't ever remember any soil being paid for. We've used it.
No, sir, not. And there was no charge for this material.
No charge, but we did want to put things back the way it was. I'm making it just
Smoothing it
smooth it out so it don't become a.
Right, and this is just contractors' expenses to do that. This is not a payment to GDOT or anybody like that. This is contractors' expenses to make those adjustments. So, but no, so we don't pay for our use of that. So, I'm sorry?
But it's still being passed on to us, the cost of it.
It is.
Yeah.
Or the group, yes, sir.
Right.
The
But as a
landfill group.
whole, going through that process, it is a savings to the city to
Right.
use that, yeah.
Certainly.
So, Gerald, can I ask this question? At this point, from the numbers you've given, we've got a savings of about 610,000, a little better than that.
I believe the numbers work out to about a $500,000 savings. If you total up the numbers in the change order, I believe it's just over 383,000, but those will replace items in the original contract worth almost $900,000, $888,000. So that's a difference or a savings of about $500,000 that we'll be saving through these change order items. So.
Great.
Now, the T Street landfill is there's three organizations that's taking care of that, right? So it's 3 ways.
Yes, all this is split 3 ways, us, Georgia Pacific, and Hercules.
Okay.
When the construction began, we all submitted an amount of money into an escrow account. And so there's plenty of money in the escrow account now to still cover this. We're not planning to have to submit any additional funds to that escrow.
That was the main thing, because when I saw T Street landfill, we coming up, we looking at this again, I said, oh, Lord. Another change order can cost us more money, but.
We're not planning at this time to have to contribute anymore.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right.
But this is our bottom line cost savings, just for us. This isn't being split.
This savings, this $500,000 will be split among the group. This is a savings to the escrow account.
Okay.
So we would save approximately $170,000 of that.
Okay, that was my question too.
So.
Okay, so
That was kind of my question too, Commissioner.
Right.
This is just an overall contractual savings.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry that I stopped you.
That's pretty much it for me, unless y'all have other questions.
Any further questions for Mr. Figueroa? Mr. Anderson?
What's our remaining time frame before we say good riddance and bye-bye to this whole process?
Probably a month, maybe 6 weeks getting out of there. So.
Awesome.
What's the total cost of it?
I want to say we're right at just over $3 million, not quite $3.5 million. So it's been quite a project.
And how long was that landfill there?
1960.
In the 50s, from what I understand, it was used as a landfill. So it's long time.
There could be some true treasures on the bottom by now.
They're selling what's
Some
on the bottom.
historic artifacts.
We don't want to.
We don't want to go treasure hunt like
We got enough contamination.
We'll let sleeping dogs lie there.
Okay, commissioners, no further questions for our engineer and for the work director, and, I entertain a motion for approval of this amendment.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract amendments with Lone Wolf Resources for the T Street landfill construction activities.
Second.
Motion for approval of the contract amendment with Lone Wolf Resources for T Street landfill construction activities. Any further questions or comments? It's a great savings for us. Good. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It appears the ayes have it and motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, item number 4B. Subrecipient amendment to increase the city of CDBG DR award for the homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction program from $300,000 to $578 to enable the city to continue providing services through the grant funded homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction program. Ms. I say, ma'am, is that this?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd also like to say that, you know, the change order for the landfill certainly wouldn't have been brought forward as it was if it was costing us more money. So the savings we were really excited about, and, you know, definitely wanted to get that approved. Same thing with this amendment. Also, this is just increasing the money that we can get for the CDBG DR program from DCA. And this has been, it was submitted, this change order or amendment was submitted to DCA in June of this year, because we were looking at the program. And I want to say, our program, you know, this program, the DR program, is one that we're administering, and it's being administered in 2 other communities in Georgia. And DCA has really been behind our program because we are out in front. We are going to be the first, prayerfully, to rehabilitate or start with the rehabilitation on houses. They have worked really well with Travis and Roxanne, and they were very appreciative of Roxanne and her work with them moving this project forward. So we're ahead of the game. We've spent the $300,000 that they initially gave us, but they have approved for us to add the $278,000 to keep moving forward. We are making some changes in the program. We had a consultant, as you know, you all approved last, I think it was around October, the tidal basin contract. We are no longer moving forward with that contract. We are basically taking over the program, and DCA is approving of that. So this kind of and there's on the last page, well, next to the last page, is a budget of the $278,000 that we're requesting, and it encompasses a last payment to a couple of payments to Tidal Basin to finish out their contractual agreement. And then we have funding for a construction manager, the manager for the program, and basically for some architectural services and some other smaller items. But this will continue the program. As I said, we are way out in front. We are hoping to start some reconstruction soon. And Roxanne is here to provide some additional information if you all have any questions.
I have one question. So this program will be open to any city residents, or there are certain city residents that this program will be open to?
They have to go through a approval process and an eligibility requirement, and Roxanne, you know, has vetted through applicants.
So they have to apply for the program.
Yeah, and the basic requirements, the first thing that we look at before we have them come in for an interview with the case manager is, do they live in the 31520 zip code? And do they have damage that they sustained from Hurricane Irma?
So do we have any applicants?
We've had 107 people. Some of those didn't make it through the first intake interview, so we start the application online, or they can come in and use one of our computers in the outreach center. Then the case managers will set up an interview, start to create an application for them, give them all the documents that they need. So I think as 86 people of that 107 have actually been through that initial intake process. 58 people were either found ineligible or decided not to move forward, or didn't respond to requests for information. So right now we have 49 applications that are in process, and we are continuing to take them.
How long will this process take?
Forever, no. I don't know is the honest answer. So what we still have to do is that we have only 7 of those properties that have gone through the duplication of benefits verification with the Department of Community Affairs, and they have had damage assessments. We're doing environmental reviews. We're hoping to hire a construction manager very soon, and we have already pre-qualified 6 contractors to oversee the project. So we're really hoping to start seeing progress on the ground very soon. Yes.
How long is the application process?
Till September 29th, I think, approximately that. I'll let you know if I gave you the wrong date.
How many of these people are able to still live in their home?
They're all pretty much still living in their homes. I think we have a few that are staying temporarily with family or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, I just hate to see that length of time with all the bureaucracy and all of the reporting and all of the I's that get dotted and T's crossed takes so long.
I know. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
It is. But we are moving forward, and as Ms. McDuffie said, we're actually somehow out front on this. So,
yeah, it sounds like y'all have done a good job and been very professional about it in order to.
Well, and I think also because it's a new program for the state, there have been a few glitches and bottlenecks there, and then, things happen. But we're moving forward. We've had some great folks working with us, especially our case managers.
Let me ask this question. What's the level of construction that will be done or that's allowed for these particular housing? I mean, in some cases, it may need to have, say, foundation work done or whatever. What's the level of construction that will be done?
So we can do a rehabilitation award up to, the camera's there, isn't it? I keep looking at it over there. Up to $75,000 is the cap on that. And we can also do a full reconstruction, and that's $150,000.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, great, we need to rehabilitate our housing stock here. We are trying our best. Thank you, Madam City Manager, for doing this, putting focus on our housing stock here in the city of Brunswick. That's something that this commission have always put as top priority moving forward. And thank you for bringing it and addressing this issue. And thank you, for
my pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question. If the houses that are being rehabbed, the individual, the owner has to live in that residence, am I correct?
It has to be their primary residence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner, any further questions or comments? Yes, sir.
The list here, like, with the Follow the tidal basin, the major through April, the tidal basin, they to lie. What is the tidal basin?
Yeah. Well, the tidal basin is the consultant that we hired last year.
We're not going to have tidal basin anywhere. That's what we need.
No, that's the consultant group that we hired. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments?
And I'd just like to say DCA has expressed just a enthusiasm about this, and they said that they will come and be here when we do our grant groundbreaking for the first unit, I think.
Moving right along, Brunswick is taking care of its people, taking care of the housing stock as well. Sometimes we move slow, but when we do move, I guess it's one step at a time.
I'll offer a motion that we approve the subrecipient agreement amendment to increase community development block grant disaster relief award for the homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction program from $300,000 to $578,593.
Motion second for us to for approval of subrecipient agreement amendment to increase City of Brunswick CDBG DR award for the homeowner rehabilitation and reconstruction program from $300,000 to $578,000. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. All right, item number 5, City Attorney item. Consider adoption of ordinance number 1072, amendment to Article 23 of the zoning code, chapter 3, section 21, which is buffer requirement. Mr. John Hunter, our planning and codes director, present.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been before you previously for a first reading. And comes back to you for a second reading. To summarize the buffer changes that were proposed as part of this ordinance revision. First, we added the ability to require a buffer when a conditional use is approved by the city. Buffers are now defined as a natural buffer, meaning existing trees and shrubs on the property are retained and possibly enhanced by cultivation or minor addition of plant material, or a structural buffer, which is the creation of a visual screen, which could be a wall, a fence, an earthen berm, or a combination. We also defined the width of the buffer. Previously, the buffer only had to conceal 75% of the adjoining property's vertical wall. To address this, we established a 20-foot buffer between office and residential zones, a 25-foot buffer between commercial recreation, and medical zones and residential zones. A buffer of 50 feet between all industrial zones and residential zones, commercial recreation, and medical zones. We added requirements for a natural buffer. This included the types of trees, overstory or understory. Evergreen shrubs are quantified within any 20-foot, 25-foot, or 50-foot natural buffer area, and are now quantified as the number required per 100 square feet. You can see how that breaks down for the 3 buffer types to overstory trees, understory trees, and evergreen shrubs. The height of trees and shrubs after planting is now also quantified. An overstory tree is 10 feet in height, an understory tree is 6 feet in height, and an evergreen shrub is 3 feet tall. And all plantings must produce a visual screen averaging 6 feet in height after a single growing season, 1 full year. Any plant material that does not survive the first growing season must be replaced. We also added requirements for a structural buffer, and more specifically define them. A structural buffer may be a fence or wall constructed of wood or masonry materials and must be at least 6 feet in height. Plant materials equal 50% of those required for a natural buffer must be installed along residential zones side of the buffer. An earthen berm may be used as a structural buffer and must be at least 6 feet in height with side slopes of 1 foot rise to 2 horizontal feet. And plant materials must be installed at the base of the berm, and the berm must be planted with permanent grass. A fence may be installed in conjunction with the berm as long as the total height achieved is at least 6 feet in height. The enforcement of these buffers is left to the building official using these guidelines, and a landscape plan for the proposed buffer must likewise still be submitted for approval. I know at your last commission meeting, unfortunately, I was not able to be there, Commissioner Martin. You had some concerns about how why we chose not to more readily define the types of overstory and understory trees. We left that to indigenous plants and trees. The idea being that different situations call for different combinations of plantings, and felt that we would best leave that to the applicant and the landscape designers to do that. And as long as they can show, and we know they were indigenous plants, that they met our requirements. And we felt that gave people a little bit more freedom than specifying exactly which types of trees and plants were needed.
Yeah.
That's a quick summary. I know y'all have seen this a couple of times before. I'm happy to answer any other questions or concerns, and appreciate you taking the time to go through this again.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Any questions or comments concerning our first reading of this proposed amendment to our ordinance, which is a buffer requirement, so stated by Mr. Hunter?
John, if you could refresh too, I believe this would be the second reading.
This would be the second reading, sir.
In accordance with the zoning requirements, we had a public hearing. It was just
previous
2 meetings ago.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
We did also have public hearing at the
second reading, which means that now we can act upon this. Okay. Any questions or comments that's been presented by Mr. Hunter on the second reading of buffer requirements under our ordinance?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1072.
Second.
Okay. Been probably motion second for the adoption of ordinance 1072, and specifically code section on the section 21 buffer requirements. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing nothing from the opposed side, I believe the motion carries. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 5A. We have before us resolution number 2021-11. It's for enacting a moratorium bearing a moratorium on building permits, sign permits, and site plan approval related to off-premises signs or billboards. Our city attorney, Gloria, can present to us.
Yes, that's correct. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I believe I've advised in the past that we have, well, I should preface by saying that as part of the work that John is doing, and we're working with the CRC, is taking a comprehensive review of our planning and zoning ordinances, which includes a comprehensive amendment to our sign ordinance. That was also a first reading was brought before you at that previous meeting we discussed, where the buffer ordinance was also a first reading. Since that first reading, we have been made aware and have received a challenge to some of the language that's included in the current City of Brunswick Code of Ordinances related to signage, specifically what we've defined as off-premise signs, which are commonly referred to as billboards. As a result, so obviously made mention to this board, I consulted with some other attorneys, city attorneys around the state, went to GMA, and have discovered that when this is done, when other cities and counties have received similar challenges, they've enacted moratoriums for the applications of additional billboard permits so that they can take time to review, plan, and work with sign companies to adopt an ordinance that is constitutional and that moving forward would be valid should it ever be challenged again down the road. Most recently in May of this year, Gwinnett County passed a moratorium very similar to this nature. I don't know, I forgot, but even in March of 2021, Glenn County passed a moratorium similar to this, but regulating railroad crossings because they had been previously left to be unzoned when they adopted their new zoning maps in 2008. So they have also adopted a similar type moratorium. So as a result, and after speaking to some of the stakeholders, including some of the sign companies, this is what was born out of those discussions. Most importantly, there's obviously the whereas clauses at the beginning, but if you would turn to page 2, section 1 and 2 are kind of the meat of the moratorium. The moratorium would enact a bar to the acceptance and a receipt by the city of applications for permissions to erect or install any sign that would be considered a billboard as determined by the director of the city's planning, development, and codes department, which would be Mr. John Hunter. Section 2 would be applications to amend. So the same ban or prohibition would apply to an application to amend a currently placed sign. Forward, it does discuss complete applications versus incomplete application. So, for example, we do have a couple pending applications for billboards to be placed in the city. This moratorium cannot affect those. There's case law out there demonstrating that should someone have validly placed an application before the city, in the correct way under the currently written ordinance, the moratorium would not affect that. So we still need to take those applications into consideration, give them the proper due process, and determine whether or not they should be approved. Incomplete applications. So if there is one that has been submitted in this time period and we've determined that it is an incomplete application, the moratorium would bar it and it would be kicked out until such time as the moratorium expires, or ideally we have adopted a new revised sign ordinance amendment, I'm sorry. Other applications, this won't prohibit the applications for a building permit, the regular applications that are often filed in John's office. This is not going to have an effect on those. It is very specific. It is very narrowly tailored to only apply towards these sign permits so that we can have some time to do what we need to do. The duration as presently written would begin today, July 21st, 2021, if approved by the board. It would continue for a period of 90 days, which would expire on October 19th, 2021. However, if John and I and the CRC are able to get together, which I think we'll be able to do well before the 90-day expiration, and bring you guys what we believe to be a valid sign ordinance amendment, which I think we already have a great start on it. I think it just needs some language to be tweaked, but you have to remember it's a planning ordinance amendment. So we're talking about a public hearing, 2 readings, time that we need to revise it. So if we are able to get that done on the date that the amendment would be approved by the Board of Commissioners, the moratorium would end. So there's a high likelihood that we'll be able to get that done well before the 90-day expiration. Any questions?
How does this affect renewals? Now, we're talking about new permits, but as far as...
It wouldn't affect a renewal of any permit I'm aware of unless the renewal called for a significant amendment or alteration to the sign permit.
So they could be a billboard that's out there today. And I don't know normally what the length of
I don't
term
think
is.
so. If once we have the permit valid. Right, I think it just, once these sign permits are in place, they're open-ended. I mean, they're in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mhm.
Okay.
You said, it's been challenged, by a couple sign companies and you are deeming that we are in violation of unconstitutional, the language is.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the challenges need legal attention and need to be scrutinized and compared to what else has been done in similarly situated cities and counties in the state of Georgia.
And you attribute that, gonna take you all 90 days. We are already halfway there. We had a first reading, but it's gonna take 90 days for you guys to get together and get this thing straight.
We didn't, but we hadn't had the challenge when the first reading was taken.
So do we have to have the challenge taken care of before we can, as we do?
I think that would be preferential, yes.
Is this challenge going through a legal court or just coming through our legal process through the city?
It has been lodged as an appeal to a denial of a sign permit.
Through who?
The city,
Yeah.
the city planning and zoning department, planning, development and codes department.
Brian, am I correct that the complainant in this particular case was outside company that doesn't necessarily have any signs in the city of Brunswick?
As far as I'm aware, they do not have any signs in the city at present.
But they made a challenge to.
That's right.
How many signs do we have pending? I know that John has answered that question.
4.
4 that are pending
Yes.
approval right now. So they are in limbo, but they haven't been approved or what?
They are under review. We have, when a sign application is filled, we have 30 business days to complete our review. Typically, we don't take that because they were all billboards and were all in-house when this challenge took place. We're doing our due diligence to.
So does it affect those or not?
The moratorium does not affect our decision on those applications.
They'll keep moving. Anybody that comes in new, trying to do
Anything that
something.
came in new
Yeah,
would be held,
they have to.
and we would inform them there's a 90-day moratorium, or however many days until the.
Right. If that is information that the commission wants, we can get to the commission.
Well, I would like to add, we proceed, I don't think we've had.
I would advise that this be put in place before. I think it would be advisable to have this put in place. The ones that are presently lodged with the city will not be affected by this.
Right.
Okay.
We have to make a determination as the ordinance is presently written on those permits.
Okay. I think that we need to go into executive session and discuss it before we come out and make a determination. Okay?
All right.
Nothing, I think we just need to do that.
Okay.
Because it seems to be a legal question and that we need to, and it concerns legalities of sign orders. So I think we need to do that.
Okay.
So,
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
yeah, we'll come out and make a determination as to how we move forward.
All right.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, commissioners, we come to the end of our regular printed agenda. I know there's one item we need to go talk to for executive session. Can I? Okay, motion second to go into executive session. City Attorney, do you have anything for personnel or anything? Yes, sir. Okay, only litigation. So we will, okay, all in favor, please say aye. And we will go into executive session to discuss litigation and afterwards come back to our regular meeting here and make a determination on just one item for moving forward. All right, we stand adjourned into executive session.
Yeah. You could tell, what's the place. I'm glad. I'm glad you, so.
Yeah, you had him squirming. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, wait a minute. I was like, I couldn't kick you. No, I couldn't kick you. Uh-huh. It's like, no. How do you change it?
meeting again, we have adjourned from executive session, discussion, litigation, anything. We have one item that we'd like to bring forth, on our agenda that we didn't make a decision about, so I entertain a motion, on item 5A.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the moratorium on the acceptance and or received by the city of Falls. Applications for building permits, sign permits, site plan approval related to off-premise signs for buildings. Second.
Then motion second for, city clerk to approve a resolution, enacting a moratorium on the receipt of city following application for building permit, sign permit, site plan approval related to off-premises sign or billboard. Are there any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
On that motion, keep it heard, keep it unanimous. So I have a motion to adjourn, and I have a second. So thank you, Commissioner, for being here, back yet again, and also thank you for, a great meeting tonight. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned.
Y'all have a good